Hello, everyone, and welcome to Coffee with Convery, the podcast where we celebrate diversity, inclusion, and success stories. Today, we have a special guest whose journey embodies resilience, innovation, and advocacy. Joining us today is Felipe Soares, a seasoned customer service leader with a passion for customer success and dog training. Felipe's career trajectory is nothing short of inspiring. From his roots as a tax lawyer to founding his own business and now making waves as a leader in the B2B SaaS community and industry. Felipe's enterprise lies in driving revenue through customer expertise lies in driving revenue through customer-centric strategies, nurturing executive relationships, and supporting people and organizations through change management initiatives. But what truly sets Felipe apart is his story as an immigrant to Canada. Whether it's mentoring Gen Z entrepreneurs, spearheading volunteer projects to support refugees, or advocating for LGBTQ plus inclusion in the tech sector, Felipe's impact extends far beyond his business metrics. Today, we'll dive into Felipe's journey, exploring experiences at companies like Fable, Ripen, and his passion for mentoring through Queer Tech's Access program, and his work to make tech more inclusive for all. Felipe, welcome to the podcast and happy Pride.
Happy Pride. Thank you so much for having me, Brian.
Excited, excited. I'm so glad we got you in the month of Pride to share your story and spread some joy and give us some insights and share with our audience all the great things you've been doing. So to get us started, I'd like to maybe go through a few rapid fire questions so the audience gets to know you. So what are your pronouns?
I go by he, him.
He, him. Awesome. And what do you think is your superpower?
My superpower, I guess, finishing a whole pack of cookie dough in one sitting, for sure.
That's a feat. By yourself?
By myself, yes. I
Oh
know,
boy.
quite impressive and unhealthy.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Um, this is another fun question. Do you have a favorite smell?
Oh, absolutely. That smell of burned salt that you get at the beach?
Yep.
That's definitely my favorite smell in the world.
Wow. Yeah. And smells brings the reason why I ask this question is it brings on so much senses of things when it comes to like the idea of like other senses and right. It's just kind of really interesting. So thank
Yeah.
you for that. What's the best compliment you've ever received?
Um, I think that whenever I tell my story, that really inspires people in some way.
Awesome. Awesome. And what is your go-to snack?
Oh, that's a good one. 100% a smashed bananas with a really thick layer of milk powder on top.
Really? Is that like
Yes.
something you invented or is that something that
I know it's not common here, but as a kid, my mom would always make it to for like a snack. She would smash two bananas and put a really thick and fatty layer of milk powder, and it's delicious. I really recommend trying.
Wow, that is so cool. I've never heard of that one. That's neat. What was your favorite subject in school?
I really loved history. So my grades were really good at that. I loved math as well, but my grades weren't as good. They were not reflective of my passion for it.
That's okay. That's okay. And they don't always match up, but it doesn't mean you don't like it, right?
That's true.
Like people might assume. Um, we all start somewhere. What was your very first job?
Right out of school in Brazil, I just kept working for the law office that I was working for. So I was a lawyer, but here in Canada, I was a busser.
Okay, okay. At a restaurant.
Yes, at a
Yep, gotcha,
restaurant.
gotcha. If you had to describe yourself in one word, what would you say?
Oh, I dislike that question a lot. I always struggle, but I asked my best friend, and he said that I'm generous. He didn't specify in what area, but I
That's a
am
good
generous
word.
apparently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great word. Generous with your thoughts, generous with your feelings for others. Hey, it could be a lot of great things. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Generous is good. Generous is good.
Yeah. I love
All
it.
right, well, we kind of learned about where things started out with the banana and the milk powder, but can you take our audience back to like where it all started for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to law school. Back at that time, I was really presented with very few options as to what I wanted to do with my studies. My parents gave me three options in that sense. Either you go to law school, or you go to medical school, or you like do something in engineering. Maybe that's really common for a lot of folks
Yeah.
out there. But yeah, I started in law school, and I really loved that aspect in law school in which you actually go out to the community and you help people get access to, justice, fair trials is part of a lot of student groups kind of scope
Yep.
in universities. So it all started there. I really loved how my education was actually having a real impact into people's lives. So I love that aspect. I started my own student groups as well. So that kind of showed, my creative side, my entrepreneurial side as well, taking things into my own hands, being really creative. I just felt really connected to my community, to people that were around me. I'm Brazilian. We are a poor country. There are so many social inequalities. So seeing my work, my education spark hope in people, I really loved that. So it was the first time doing something in a more polished way
Hmm.
that just made me feel really good about it.
And you, correct me if I'm wrong, so you did immigrate from Brazil to Canada, is that correct?
Yes, I immigrated right after I finished my studies.
Okay. And did you make that? I'm always curious, did you make that on your own, that transition? Was it family came with you? How did it?
Yeah, it was never in my plans to
Okay.
immigrate. My father was that figure in my family that was pushing me, to experience new things and live life. So I was
Wonderful.
like, you know what, yeah, I'm down for that. If I can count on your support while
Yeah.
doing so, even better. So that's
Good.
how it started.
What a great gift your dad gave you for that to get you here and
Yeah,
experiencing. That's
I'm
awesome.
super grateful. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you've had a diverse educational background, and can you talk maybe a little bit, you're talking about some of the audience members that listen to this, they're trying to figure out what to do about education, what kind of experiences, and maybe the part of this podcast is having people share sort of their own educational experiences that they had and how maybe they've influenced decisions or life or all of the above.
Yeah, absolutely. That question brings me back to what my father told me one day, that choosing your path is kind of going up in a tree, on a
Hmm.
tree. You
Hmm.
might take a branch, and this will lead you to so many other branches, right? Um, but that actually gave me a bit of an anxiety because I was like, okay, if I take this branch and then if I don't like it, how do I go back to the original, to the status quo? So I think for me is just understanding that you can certainly go back. Uh, there are very few decisions that you can't, go back on. So
Yeah.
most likely you will be able to experience something, and if you feel like it's not for you, you might be able to, use that experience to find something that will be a right fit for what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Um, so if I'm talking about my educational experiences and how this influenced my life, um, my trajectory after law school wasn't linear at all. You know, I was about to finish my master's in Brazil when I decided to move to Canada. I came here as a international student. I was quite lost, to be honest. I always thought myself as a lawyer, never really thought of doing anything else. So in that moment of not knowing what to do, I was like, I'm just gonna choose something that, you know, is as generic as I can be. So I
Hmm.
chose business management as, a program in Toronto. Um, and I was doing that just to, keep to tap into the ecosystem and to learn something that law school probably didn't teach me. And in the meantime, I definitely kept my options open. So I was new to the city. I really wanted to meet people. I think getting connected to the right people in Toronto definitely was like a tipping point in my trajectory. I volunteered for like incubators, and I went to like the DMZ at Ryerson,
Yeah.
and I got connected to folks there. I was just like, I want to do something. I want to help. I have time. So, use me in the most like positive way. Um, and I met so many nice people. In general, people are super open to connecting. I also started my own business, so that's kind of a funny thing that wasn't intentional at all. I saw an opportunity to help Brazilian founders get connected to Canadian founders and investors. I had those two
Wow.
communities that I knew. So I was like, you know what, maybe there's something here. So um, as I got connected to people, I started my own business. I was getting really good at those things. And I was like, you know what? There are so many other things that I can do. Law and being a lawyer does not define me. I can do so many other things. There are so many, soft skills that I can leverage.
Yeah.
So I think that mindset of I can do this and I have been doing this and I can take things into my own hands and I can make it happen. That's the most important thing that I had at that time. And that's something I always try to remember. When I'm stuck at something today, I'm like, I can't change this. And that's so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. What great inspiration, and thanks for sharing that piece of the journey too. And when you think about it, those are quite a few number of opening yourself up, right? And transitional moments to be included in all these different things. Was there any challenges you faced going through that or anything that was difficult to work through?
Yeah. Oh, so many. Uh, when I when I moved here, I caught myself like putting myself a lot down. I
Interesting.
definitely felt that imposter syndrome,
Mhm.
as someone who doesn't have you know, perfect English, who didn't go to like prestige Canadian schools. I definitely felt like I was at a disadvantage compared to folks looking for job or, just looking to succeed in the in the work environment. So that definitely knocked my door a lot. That feeling of not being enough, um, not knowing the right people. So yeah, when I go back to that moment, I had like I had a lot of challenges. Feeling comfortable and advocating for myself and like applying to the roles that I wanted to apply.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that and being raw about it, because I think there's a lot of listeners that are new immigrants to Canada, came here for school, maybe trying to get associated, adjusted, and set themselves up. And I think as part of this, these are normal experiences to feel and to I think try to overcome. And there's strategies to get through that, right? And to try to boost yourself up as you talked about. So thank you for sharing that. I also know you're a passionate advocate for LGBTQ plus inclusion in the tech industry, which is still something we need to be talking about. Some people ask me, is that still an issue? Yes, it is. But from your experience and what you've been doing and how you've navigated, what advice would you give to young LGBTQ plus individuals who are aspiring to maybe enter the tech field, but even the working world in general? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I continue to think about, and my opinion definitely evolves as I meet more people.
Yeah,
I am still evolving too, and I'm still learning. But I do remember one point in my career a few years ago where someone that was my mentor told me, you should probably like just know the companies that you were applying for and know their culture and like try to adapt how you say things, how you go to an interview and your tone of voice, how you present yourself. And I took that to heart and I really applied that. But you know what? After going through so many rounds of interviews, I kind of felt really erased by that
interesting.
comment.
Yeah,
And I felt like I wasn't bringing my whole self and my personality to those roles. And I was progressing through rounds, but I was actually attracting the wrong type of companies and the wrong types of hiring managers. So um, I would not say this to anyone looking for jobs. I do think that your our unique lived experiences, our quirk personalities, the way you think, the way you approach problems, how you say things, the way you present yourself, the way you dress, that ring that you have in your ear, all those things are assets. Don't be shy to show them who you are, your story, embrace that. That is a value. You're worth it. um, there is a company, there is a hiring manager out there who is looking for exactly who you are. And I say this because I am a hiring manager, and these are the things that we look for. So tech is ever changing, tech is dynamic, tech is diverse. Creativity and personality are so important.
Wow. That clip right there, we could just end on that note. That was awesome. You just nailed it. It was such good advice. Oh my gosh, I love what you just said. And it's so true because I even being on the other side as a recruiter for so long and seeing people trying to sell themselves to a job or to a title or to a company, it's not an acting job. Like it's not an acting role. Like once you show up, you have to be yourself. So why not, like you just shared, be who you are at the very beginning, attract the right opportunities and things like that. Incredible advice. Incredible advice. I'm gonna have to snip out some of these words and highlight these for you in other reels. It was awesome.
Love
Um,
that.
no, absolutely. And then I know Jen said entrepreneurs like Queer Tech's Access Program. Can you talk a little bit what that is? I'm not sure our audience knows what that is and how's
Yeah.
that all working? Yeah.
Oh my God, I absolutely adore what Career Tech does and what Career Tech is. Definitely look them up if you're, someone in the queer industry, sorry, in the tech industry and you're queer. They are an organization that was born in Montreal, but they are, all across Canada now. I met them at a meetup, event in Toronto. Their whole mission really is to empower queer people to claim their space in the tech community. Um, Tech is diverse, and I just said that, but there are certain segments in tech that are still male dominated, cis dominated, white dominated. So it is a really important mission to queer the tech ecosystem. So they do have a couple of programs. The one that I'm part of is the Queer Tech Access Program, in which to really empower young queer people to, get meaningful employment, get connected to the right opportunities. Um, we just had a couple of open houses. We met the mentees, and it's a really diverse group of folks. The mentorship program is just a small part of their access program, so
Mhm.
they run tons of initiatives. They are really supportive. Like they have a whole team. They run research as well. They publish their research, so it's a really serious and committed organization. So definitely encourage everyone to look it up and find out when they are going to do a meetup in your city, because they're all over Canada.
Thank you for sharing and talking more about it because this podcast is really to try to open people's minds and expose them to things they might not even know are as available to them, right? So
Yeah.
this sounds like a fantastic program, fantastic resource, and opportunity for people that identify to have access to talk to other people like themselves and kind of get exposed to that. Thank you for sharing that. And the other thing I was really impressed with is looking up and looking at your background and what you've been doing lately with Fable's work in fostering accessibility in digital products is really commendable. I don't think there's enough people that think about this. Um, how do enterprises approach integrating feedback from individuals with disabilities, maybe thinking about this into their product life cycle to ensure more inclusivity from what you guys are doing?
Yeah, a great question. And accessibility is such an amazing space. I also didn't know about anything prior to joining Fable. Um, and what I always kind of tell when this topic comes up is that 98% of websites today fail accessibility guidelines. This
Still
was a study
today, this
done
is crazy.
to this day. It's
Wow.
2024. This is a
Wow.
huge number, and what this means is that people with disabilities struggle to just complete to just be part of the digital world, to complete simple tasks like shopping for groceries, shopping for clothes, post on social media and travel. So that is a huge problem, and it cannot be solved by AI, at least not until today. So at Fable, what we do, our product really connects digital teams like researchers, designers, engineers to our community of people with disabilities so that they can really understand
Hmm.
their, online experiences, take that feedback away and build more inclusive apps, more inclusive products so that, they can participate in digital society, they can contribute and shape digital society as well. So it's an amazing mission. I'm super happy, being part of Fable. Um, I just love what we do.
Yeah, and people should check that out too, because when I was looking up the company and looking what they're all doing, and you're part of it, is um, it's inspiring because like I feel like this is a topic that continues to churn, and in 2024, there's still a lot of things that are not accessible, it and why are we still thinking that's okay? Like you should launch a product that is fully accessible when you
Yeah,
go out with it, not after. Um,
yeah, absolutely.
Interesting, interesting. So also through your career, you've demonstrated strong commitments to social impact initiatives, such as volunteering to support refugees, mentoring LGBTQ plus youth. And I'm just curious, what drives your passion for giving back to the community?
Yeah, I think we definitely live in a world that is not fair. We people don't have access to opportunities simply because of their skin color, their background, the way they speak, their financial situation. Um, I me for example, I have a privileged life. I'm a cis man. In Brazil, I'm considered white. I have a family who financially supported me, my studies, my dreams, um, but I still faced, I still faced racism and homophobia and discrimination in Brazil and in Canada. Now, imagine folks who are in even more, marginalized groups. So this really upsets me that
Mm.
we lost that human connection in society. We can't see the human behind the labels and the boxes that we put people in. So I do think that we have a social duty, like a social commitment to be better humans and just to like help each other out whenever we can. So I don't think I'm like the strongest advocate for social causes, but I do want to. I am aware of my kind of duty as part of a society, so that's where it comes from.
We need more Felipes out there, that's for sure. Because this is important, and not I think, I know you're right. Like, I feel even in the last few years, the humanity has gone out the door in so many ways. And I was just talking about this today with someone saying people are talking like they write on social media, which isn't proper either. In person,
Yeah,
they'll tell you exactly the same thing now.
yeah,
And like, why? Do you be kind, right? So,
yeah, yeah.
um, what about mentoring and particularly sharing in your career? Was there any like, I mean, we talked about challenging moments and things in your career and how you overcome it, but what about things like thinking about startups? People are in that mindset too. A lot of the young generation now is thinking like, hey, I'm not sure I want to big work for the big whatever.
Mm,
Maybe a startup, nonprofit, whatever. You know, for someone kind of thinking outside of just corporate North America, maybe looking at some additional kind of places with those meaningful purposes. Um, what do you think are some of the key ingredients for building that type of success for someone? How do they go about it? Because I think we're so pre-programmed for brands that sometimes we don't
mm.
even get our eye off of that to think about other things.
Yeah, I would say erase that.
Erase.
Um,
Yep.
definitely, definitely, and I know you believe in this. There are so many good people doing great things, outside of the corporate world. Um, and understanding the type of culture and type of people you want to be connected with, that's such a key element, right?
Yeah.
Um,
True.
I've heard a friend celebrating the fact that got a really they got an offer from a really big corp in Canada. Then going into understand a little bit more what the company was about, their values, how they work together. Having those conversations with folks before accepting the offer was so crucial because then we found out that wasn't really the fit for them.
Mm. See?
Um,
Yeah.
so I think, in terms of ingredients for really building a successful career, what I realized recently is that I wasn't advocating for myself enough.
Yeah.
And I always felt shy to ask for a higher pay or better benefits or a more balanced work life kind of environment. And I digging into this, I felt like it was missing like that sense of worthiness, that I wasn't worth to, ask for those things. So advocate for yourself. The first step, and I will stress this, is know your worth, know your value.
Yep.
And I'm going to make a pause here so you can really digest what this means, because this is the really first step of feeling that you can ask for what you want. So tap into that, double down on that worthiness, grow and learn. By nature, this process is going to feel uncomfortable because you're going to step outside of your comfort zone, right? You're going to be leaning into the discomfort, and that's good. You're not alone. You need to stay open. You need to lean into that discomfort because that's when good things will happen. That's when you start to ask for the role that you want.
Yeah.
You're going to start to ask to enroll in that course that you want. You're going to ask for feedback from your peers, from your manager, and you're going to learn how to take that feedback. So if by hearing this, you feel like you haven't felt uncomfortable yet, try to understand why and get uncomfortable.
Great, 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 great advice. Thank you for sharing that. Um, Networking mentorship, always a topic. How has that supported your own journey? And again, advice to younger people or people looking to network or maybe find that mentor.
Mhm. Yeah. So I mentioned this earlier now in our conversation, but I find that people are generally open if you reach out to get their thoughts on something. If you really show genuine interest in their field and you're open to learning, and you're open to hearing their thoughts and sharing your ideas, folks are generally open to having conversations like that. So as I said, don't be shy. In the past, what I've done, I had like a point in my career that I was quite lost. I quite didn't know if I wanted to pursue customer success or if I wanted to go back into law. And what I did, I created like a 10 slide pitch deck about things that I'm good at and what I can contribute to, what type of causes, organizations, or topics. And I published that on my LinkedIn. It's probably still there. I should probably hide it because it's quite old. I don't know what's in there. Um, but I published that on many channels, on my Instagram, on my LinkedIn, on Facebook groups, and I got so many messages. People were actually interested to hear from me, and I was interested to hear from them. So I got a lot of connections, good conversations, and that sparked so many good ideas after.
Yeah, it's so interesting too, even like about the publishing of content like that you just shared. Um, People listening to this podcast too have asked things like, well, I don't really have anything to say. If I post something, I'm not sure anyone will care. And I think that again goes back to that sort of imposter or the idea that once you start contributing and having a voice, and even if it's liking something and then realizing later you want to comment on it or publish your own thing, it's important, right? Because it's part of who you are. It also, as recruiters and employers and as hiring manager, like you are now too, you look at what these folks are doing, not just at their resume. You want to see what else they're talking about, right? Who are they?
Yeah,
So important.
100%.
So
Yep.
so important. Um, wow, I could talk for hours with you. This has been so much fun. I want to ask you though, is there anything that I didn't touch upon or talked about that you wanted to share with the listeners as we think
Y-
about wrapping for the day? Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I would say is, if you're hearing this, listen, I'm not an expert in anything, so take everything that I just said in a context, understand how that applies to your experiences, to your context. Um, and I would love to hear from you if anything I said didn't resonate at all, or if anything resonated, I would love to hear what you think about it. So find me on LinkedIn um, under Felipe Soares and shoot me a message. That would be lovely.
That's awesome. Thanks for offering that too, because I know a lot of our listeners may take you up on that offer and connect with you to learn more and to talk more. Because we're all going through this life together, and you can always learn and talk to others and gain some ideas that maybe weren't something you thought about before. But I just have to say thank you so much for being a part of this podcast, and especially today and during the month of Pride. Happy Pride. Hope you have a wonderful time in Montreal. I know that's where you're residing now, and it's been really wonderful catching up and seeing you today.
Thank you so much, Brian. I'm such a fan of your work and your experience. It's such an honor to be part of the podcast. And happy Pride to you and to all the listeners.
Thank you. Thank you. So, for our listeners, if you liked what you heard today on the podcast, you can like us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram, Coffee with Convery, which has all of our shows that we featured over the last 4 years. This has been Coffee with Convery, and until next time, happy Pride and stay well.